Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday, NCAA
Let,
Tournament Edition.
let's go. NCAA Tournament Edition. We've got basketball, so much basketball. We don't know what to do with it all. What a great time in the sports world. Keith, I have to start things off, though, to bring the energy down for a moment. I have to start things off with a very sincere and very real apology. Kentucky fans, it's my fault. It's my fault. I did it. I am responsible for that jinx. Yesterday's show, I mentioned all the NBA guys that are on Kentucky and how I should have picked them to win the whole thing, and here they are going home already. So that's on me, everybody. My bad. I don't know what else to say there.
Yeah, it's that was like the big bracket buster I saw. That something like 0.03% of brackets are still perfect after the first day. One of them is oddly enough, Bijan Robinson of the Atlanta
Really?
Falcons. Yeah. Yep, he's got a perfect bracket. In our bracket group, we had one person. They didn't name their bracket, so you're gonna have to go in and edit your name from ESPN. A whole bunch of numbers picks one to your name, so we know who you are. I had 140 points, so that's 14 of 16 games right. And then we also had a guy. Unfortunately, there was a handful of people with 13 of 16 right. He had 13 of 16 right. Noah Schwartz, but his champion is Kentucky, so
Oh,
it's gonna probably struggle through it. So
yeah.
yeah. But yeah, man, fun first day of the tournament. It is a bummer that all the Kentucky prospects are out. They had 9 legitimate NBA
That kills
prospects
me.
there, and they're out. And it is what it is. That's the tourney.
It's the way that it goes, and it's part of what makes us love March Madness. But at the same time, man, like I look at the tournament through an through an NBA lens. So whenever these teams that have NBA prospects go out, it's always going to be disappointing for me. I was not sitting there. Look, you love the underdog story and all that, but I was not sitting there rooting for Oakland because I want more opportunities to evaluate the NBA, the NBA guys. I wanted Kentucky to survive. Did not happen, and I knew I only had myself to blame.
Yeah, I'm with you, but when it was like under 2 minutes and it was like Oakland might pull this off, I was 100% in. I'm like, there's enough body of work. I can figure out where I need to be on these guys for the draft. But yeah, man, it was a good first day. Well, we'll see. We got Florida Atlantic is getting ready to tip off against Northwestern here in about 5-ish minutes or so. The only NBA prospect playing in that game, real NBA prospect, John L. Davis of Florida Atlantic. He is a big point guard. He's about 6'4", averaged 18 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists this year. So good player there, can really shoot the ball, handle the ball. People may be familiar with him from Florida Atlantic's run last year in the NCAA tournament. So he's definitely a player to keep an eye on today in the early afternoon game.
By the way, in the chat right now over on the YouTube side, I am dropping the link to the basketball bulletin, specifically to Keith's post on NBA prospects to watch today. He has it all laid out for you, who we're keeping an eye on, when they're playing, where they're ranked, all that stuff. So it's a very, very valuable list. Go check that out as well over on the basketball bulletin, which is our Substack. Great way to support us as well. Keith, again, I feel like I am starting things off with so much negativity. First of all, the apology for Kentucky, but the other thing we really need to talk about it because this could matter a lot in terms of the Western Conference playoffs. Unfortunately, Brandon Ingram suffering a knee injury last night. Now, the hope is that maybe he'll be back in a few weeks, but if you saw it, especially if you saw where they slowed it down, like his knee bent the wrong way. They're saying it's probably a bone bruise, and we know how those can certainly linger. This is, this was the team that just a couple of days ago we were talking about the Pelicans. I mean, as potentially the dark horse in the Western Conference. They've been playing fantastic basketball. You never know how these things are going to heal up. And I look, this is the time of year when you can't have injuries like this happening. So very, very rough news for New Orleans today.
Yeah, I will lift it up a little bit. Better
Okay.
news than it could have been.
Sure.
right? That it is only, and I'm putting that in quotations, a bone bruise, because it looked like it might have been something way worse when it
Like
happened.
something poor.
On the
Yeah.
replay, yeah, it looked like this was probably going to be season ending, and we all know a season ending injury this late in the year can mean a significant chunk of next year. They're saying 2 weeks they'll update his status, so hopefully in 2 weeks they're telling us he's a few days away, and then can maybe get a game or two in before the end of the regular season, and then
Mhm.
he's ready to go. We'll see, where they ultimately land out. The Pelicans are. They were trying to kind of chase down the Clippers. I mean, I guess they still are in
Uh-huh.
theory, but they are also trying to hold off the Mavericks and the Suns and the Kings. They've got enough of a lead over the Lakers and Warriors, and we're not too worried about getting caught that far from behind. But it's still going to be a challenge for them to figure this out. But as long as the rest of the guys are healthy, yeah, my assumption is Trey Murphy steps into Ingram's starting
Yeah.
spot. They just kind of keep things moving there in New Orleans because that's what they're pretty used to at this point.
Do you think what does this group need to do, the Pelicans, in order to stay together this summer? Because this does seem to be a team that could be looking at things saying Zion, Brandon Ingram as our base that we're building off of. Is this working? Is this not? Maybe this injury muddies the water a little bit, but what did we need to see out of this team come playoff time for the Pelicans to recommit this summer and not really explore the trade market with either guy?
Yeah, I think a really competitive first round series. I don't know that it needs to be a win in the first round, but just be at least really competitive. So that's 6 or 7 games. Games are close. You're right
Okay.
there with a chance to advance. I think that's enough to kind of keep them in it.
That's pretty reasonable. Those aren't crazy expectations or anything like that.
No.
I think, in fact, I'd say that's pretty likely that they're able to do that, have a competitive first round series, especially the way they're playing right now. And again,
Mhm.
taking a quick peek at the standings, yeah, I mean, still kind of they're a game and a half back from the Clippers now, so probably they take on the Clippers in round one, and they'll be on the Clippers floor, and then they go from there. I would say I think the Pelicans could very well beat the Clippers. I think we could see that happening.
A lot of that will come down to who's healthy, right?
Sure.
Who's going to be on the floor, right? That will be the complete difference maker for those two teams. We'll put Minnesota in that mix because of Karl Anthony
Mhm.
Towns, but more so than anybody else in the conference because everybody else, I think we can at this point, no, knock on wood lightly, so the dogs don't go crazy, but you can bank on relative health at this point. Guys have kind of made it to this point in the season. We feel like they should be able to make it a few more weeks and get to the playoffs. So, but New Orleans is dealing with stuff. The Clippers have been dealing with some stuff, and the Timberwolves are dealing with Karl Anthony Towns. So that health is going to decide a lot for those teams for sure as we get into it here over the next little bit. And you've hit the point now where some of those teams it's all right, it's time to we're not going to worry about pushing as hard as we can for seeding. We need to have these guys healthy and ready to go for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the decision making process right now at this point in the
Yep.
season for a lot of teams. Third theory with the super chat said front office Friday. Appreciate it's y'all. I think he made fun of himself for his own typo there, but
He
I
did.
think he was saying appreciate y'all. But front office Friday. Yes, indeed. It's Friday. We always love coming on live here. Guys, if you're in the chat, you're over on YouTube, you're on X. Let us know. What do you want us to talk about? This is your show. This is how
Yep.
we do Fridays. You guys direct the show and explain what you want us to talk about. Ryan said, Keith, I'm cheering for you all the way from New York City. Beyond glad that you're doing better and can see your progress. Keep it up, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it was yesterday was not a good day. I ate a lot of fried seafood yesterday, but it was the tournament. You got if I know myself, if I don't indulge every once in a while, I'm never gonna achieve what I want to achieve because I'm just gonna end up falling off way harder. So I indulged yesterday, first round of the tournament. I had there's one restaurant here in Orlando that serves New England style seafood that they actually have flown in fresh. So it's like a taste of home for me. So I had some not great tasting food, not great for me food, but that's part of what the tournament's about.
Sure. Yeah. It's about having a little fun, eating some good food, and watching a
Yeah.
whole lot of basketball.
A lot of basketball, yeah. Yeah, it was a late night last night even. It's weird. It wasn't late compared to what like NBA nights or for me here in the East Coast are 1, sometimes 1:30, 2 o'clock
Mhm.
in the morning. But for some reason, the tournament nights just feel later, even if they're not necessarily actually later. I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
Oh, I recorded the Lakers Nation podcast last night, and I recorded it fairly late, and I finished it, and then I look, and my Twitter notifications are still talking about NCAA tournament. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's still games going on.
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah. All
gosh,
it takes is
which
one
was
to get a
great.
little bit slow. Some of these reviews now, man. The NBA
Mhm.
nonsense is now uh, tripped over to college basketball too. Like there needs to be a standard rule in all sports, all of them. If you can't figure it out within, I'll even give a minute, then the call stands is whatever it was called on the
Yeah.
floor, field, court, pitch, whatever you call it, stands, and we all move on. And sometimes maybe that's wrong, but if you need more than a minute, then that's a mess. I'll give a little bit of leeway if it's one of these things where it turns into like a fight and we're trying to figure out like who did what in like a scuffle. Like, all right,
Mhm.
that's a little bit different. But if it's
Sure.
just out of bounds plays or was it a foul or not, if you can't figure it out in a minute, then move on and just play. It's no one's gonna get that worked up that it's like, you know what I like? A 5-minute review with 2 minutes left in a close game. Everyone loves that. Just move on and keep going.
Well, we remember the Lakers game from about a week
Oh
ago when
God.
the game was literally stopped for 20 minutes. Now, a lot of that was shot clock or clock
Yeah.
malfunctions, but still, that was about as far. I mean, that basically killed crunch time against the
Yeah.
Warriors. It was all the
Yeah, it took
entire
what,
flow of the
20
game was
minutes
just
to
dead.
play the
Yeah,
last two? Yeah.
yeah, it was literally 20 minutes. And that's not it. That I know people go, "Oh, you're exaggerating." No, it was literally 20 minutes to play out the final 2 minutes of the game, with a long stoppage due to a couple of different reviews. And after that game, Keith, I I switch. I said previously that I kind of like the review system. I would keep it around. I'm now closer to the side of if we're going to be dealing with stuff like that, scrap the whole thing. Just
Also, I
kill the
mean,
whole thing. Get rid of it.
we probably should start a GoFundMe for the poor small market Lakers and their functioning shot clocks and try to help them out there. We know it's tough for them. These are
Well,
tough
yeah, I mean
times for them.
that's certainly a problem. Something with their software or something like that was an issue.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What
Like
a
just
mess.
bring out the clocks that you set next to the court
Right?
and play it, or
Yeah. Well, and then they
quit
always
stopping
go
the
to
game.
the guys got to count it out, and I'm like, I could
Oh
only
yeah.
imagine the stress of that. Like, I would feel I don't even know. I'd be so nervous. I don't think I could do it. And you're just yelling out numbers. Like
I'd be
it
doing
shouldn't be hard, but
the Perd Hapley from Parks and Rec. 10 seconds is how much time that you had left on the clock when I started this sentence. Your time
I
is
love it.
now 0.
Yep. Oh,
uh,
great.
Senpai says, feels like the NBA will lose out on a lot of money by any of the Lakers, Warriors, Suns, Mavs missing the playoffs. Could we see them get rid of conferences? We've talked
Nope.
about that for a long time. It's been for decades now, where the West, you've seen teams that have better records than the East, who miss the playoffs, and then Eastern Conference teams kind of fall backwards into the playoffs. Um, but it's been talked about for so long, getting rid of conferences, that I'm skeptical that it's ever going to happen, because these things do, even though it's been this way for a while, things do eventually come back around. But like during the 80s, it was the other way around. Um,
Hmm.
but but I think if it's going to happen, when they bring these two new teams in, whether assuming it's Vegas and Seattle, that might be the opportunity to do something like that when they truly go back to the drawing board and redraw things. Maybe then you decide to do away with it. But even then, I would say it's unlikely to happen, but that would be the time when it would happen if they're going to do it.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say, if you look at the standings, if the teams win that should win right now, assuming everything holds in the play-in, the seventh and eighth seeds in the East have better records than the ninth and tenth seeds in the West. So you wouldn't get two of those teams. You wouldn't get the late. It's not the Lakers and Warriors would be in anyway, right? Because
Well,
they're
give the Lakers and the Warriors an Eastern Conference schedule, though.
sure, but I mean they're
Then
not
that would
gonna.
change things
Yeah,
quite a bit.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it would. We think they'd be that much better.
I mean, I'm
I
talking about a
mean,
few games. If you've
yeah,
got a few
I,
extra games playing against,
maybe
the Wizards and the
as
Pistons and the
opposed to the
Hornets and
Spurs and the Trailblazers and
I
the
mean, well, look, you've got Spurs, Blazers, Grizzlies, but I think the Rockets and the Jazz are a bit more challenging to take on than say, well, the Raptors right now, and
yeah,
some teams like that.
sure.
There's been years where it's been worse,
There's
certainly,
definitely been
but
and there's been years where like the Suns missed with like 48 wins or
yes, yeah,
whatever, and
we've
the
seen
West
that.
teams were getting in with were their East teams rather were getting in with losing records. Those are unbalanced. I just
Yeah.
the other thing that I would say too is let's say there are upsets. The money is not, yeah, you lose a couple teams there. What you lose is star power, but
Hmm.
the NBA would rather have Chicago in that market than probably Dallas or Phoenix. Like Chicago is just a massive market, and they're going to pull in or eyeballs, not eyebrows, eyeballs,
Eyebrows too,
probably
maybe.
eyebrows
I don't
too.
know.
Yeah, I imagine, yeah, or a brow if it's Anthony Davis. So yeah, I get it. My bigger thing is like we've talked about it before. I think they're going to be sitting there looking at it and saying, "Man, we got Lakers, Warriors, and Suns, Mavs. Like this is awesome." And then they're going to wake up the next morning and be like, "Wait, one of them's out, and another
Yeah,
one's going to be out. Like
that's not good.
like now we're missing them, right? Like that's where it kind of falls apart for me." Now, all that said, give me any one of those teams over the Hawks or the Bulls. Like
Sure.
if they end up playing their way through, like even if Embiid can't get back, give me one of those teams over the Sixers too. The bigger problem is conferences. There's two parts, right? The East owners are never going to vote to get rid of conferences in full because it's too much. And it's everything they've done is about reducing travel. They're never going to go to a flat 30 team league with
Hmm.
even balanced schedules like that because it's just not going to happen. You wouldn't be able to get there travel wise the way they really want to make it work.
Right. That's the challenge. So most likely you're going to wind up seeing Minnesota, Memphis, New Orleans. One of those teams is going to go east. We're going to bring two new teams in, and that's probably just going to be the way it is. And it's always possible that at some point in the future too, like we look at the star power that right now is kind of, I mean, stuck in this mire of the play-in tournament, is in danger of not being in the playoffs, and that could be very bad for the NBA. But I mean, who's to say that 10 years from now the Stars won't be stuck in the eastern side of things, and that I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know how this is going to really look for the future.
Yeah. I'll also say I'll pull this one up here. Portland is Simons at Ayton. Yeah, okay. No one's worried about that. Like, get out of here with that. To San Antonio with Wembanyama, sure, but even with
Yeah,
Wembanyama, they stink. Like, they're just not good. So we're not going to act like playing the Spurs is a tough game. Going against him individually can be hard, but everybody beats those guys all the time. In Portland, they're just not a good team. In Simons and Ayton, they've been in and out of the lineup all year. So it's, it kind of is what it is. And for this one, yeah, never ever gonna happen. We will never see promotion and relegation in U.S. pro sports. I shouldn't say never,
yeah.
but probably not in our lifetimes. There's just too much money at stake. It's just not going to happen. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
it is.
there's too much money. The franchises are too valuable. And I know people will say, "Oh, well, it works great in Europe." Yeah, but look, that's something they've had for
Hundreds of years.
hundreds
Yeah.
of years. Like that, it is ingrained in the culture there. That it's
Yeah.
not a thing in the US. It's not, and it's just not gonna happen. There's no team owner that would sign off on that and risk the potential drop in revenue, the potential drop in franchise valuation with going down into a lower division and then having to fight their way back up. There's no chance they would allow that to happen.
Yeah. I also baseball has AAA. Like it's not, but you don't send teams down to AAA. So it's not like there's no promotion and relegation. You promote players. Those are minor leagues. Like
Yes.
these are not set up that way. Like it's just not built up that way. We have a draft system. We don't have full, just sign whoever you want system. So yeah, it's just a different world. I mean, that's really all there is to that.
All right. Well, but I mean, they also don't have playoffs though, too.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah,
it's a very
they're
different system.
very different systems that they use. And good luck trying to tell somebody like, hey, you want to buy a team for $4 billion, and
Right.
they might not be actually in the top league next year. Like, it's just not going to happen.
All right, let's go. Mr. Easley said, I'm working from home, doing homework with a cup of coffee, and got the best podcast going.
Love it.
Man, he's working, doing homework, drinking coffee, and listening to the show. That is a multitasker right there. But we appreciate all of you who are taking your, whether it's your lunch break or whatever it is at work and you're tuning in. We appreciate all of you on this fine Friday. Thank you for all of everything. You said, what are your takes on the Paul George situation? Also front runner for MVP. So I guess let's start with the Paul George of it all. I still believe a deal will get done with the Clippers. I think the thing that came out the other day about the 76ers lurking as a potential threat to land him was more about pushing the Clippers to get something done and maybe come off of whatever it is that's holding this up more than anything else. If it gets to summertime, if we get to the end of June and this is still not done, okay, you got me. Maybe this Sixers thing really does happen. For right now, I think it's more about leverage than anything else because I do think Paul George will wind up staying with the Clippers, but he would be a crazy good fit with Philly.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. I think this is just a leverage play of, hey, I have other options if we don't get this done, if you don't want to come and take care of me here. So yeah, I think we're in a spot where that still gets done, but quite frankly, I kind of hope he does get to free agency, so we at least have one really good free agent kind of available. But I just gotta believe that'll get done. Front runner for MVP for me, it's Jokic, and I don't know that it's particularly close. It would have been Embiid, but obviously not going to be, not eligible. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's my second guy. I think he's been absolutely terrific. I think he should get definitely some consideration. I just think Jokic is just it's at a different level, and a lot of it may end up coming down to, can Jokic and the Nuggets pull ahead and away from the Thunder by the end of it for some people? But I think it's going to be Jokic.
Yeah, right now they're both tied, but the Nuggets having played a couple more games, the Nuggets are 49-21, the Thunder 48-20 right now. So the Thunder sitting in the 1 seed currently with their win percentages slightly higher. But yeah, I've got Jokic as well. And I think when it comes down to, we tend to look at the best players on the best teams, right, for MVP, which is rightfully so. But SGA has been great this season, and it wouldn't shock me if he wins it at some point.
Sure.
But not right. Like, I think ultimately it comes down to this. Both guys are having great seasons. Both teams are having tons of success. Both guys are in that upper echelon of players in the NBA right now. But to me, it comes down to, who would I rather have, right? Like, who is the better player? And I think that's very clearly Jokic. And I say that as somebody who loves SGA's game. I'm a big fan of his. Jokic he's the better player. He was the guy I would rather have. If you told me right now you can have one of those two guys, I would take Jokic, and I wouldn't think about it very long. It would be a pretty quick, easy decision. That may not be the case next year, may not be the case the year after. SGA is on the rise, but right now, I think it's got to be Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go a step further. If we just opened it to the entire world of basketball players, I'm taking Jokic over anybody right now. He's that good, and you can build any kind of team you really want around him, and off you go. So yeah, that's but for this specific season, regular season, it's also too, I don't do any of the whole, well, SGA is going to prove it in the playoffs. No, he doesn't. This is a regular season award for this. He can prove it in the playoffs where you see him as his standing as an overall player in the league and all those things. But this is this season's regular season award. And it's, if anybody wants to factor in playoff success and all that stuff, none of that should matter when you're voting for an MVP award that's for this specific regular season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Josh said, Keith, what's your opinion on the Lakers' big man situation? Who should they sign and waive? Or do we ham it up with our hands in our pockets? I'm sure you've seen it, Keith. The Lakers fans all make fun of Darvin Ham for constantly having his hands in his pockets. We say that's the reason why he doesn't properly call timeouts, because his hands are just stuck in his pockets.
Can't get them out.
Yeah, exactly. But so this has been, to give you, because this has been a talking point around Lakerland, because there's no Christian Wood. He's out for, who knows, maybe the season. I mean, after getting this knee procedure. And so the talking point has been, should the Lakers just go sign somebody off the street to come provide another big, because Colin Castleton is dealing with a wrist injury, and Jackson Hayes is the only other big on the roster. But this has been the point that I've been making. You can tell me if you agree with this, that I don't think they go sign anybody because they have 15 roster spots filled. And in order to waive somebody, well, this is where the mistake that you made with offering these player options for next summer really hurts you, because that would be dead money sitting on your books. Christian Wood, Jackson Hayes, Cam Reddish, those are the three guys you'd be most likely to waive. You're not waiving, Max Christie, who's going to be a restricted free agent. You're not waiving Taurean Prince, who's on an expiring deal. You're not waiving, even though Jalen Uchifino just had surgery and Lakers fans are frustrated with him because he's not Cam Whitmore and all of that. You're not waiving him. You're not waiving Max Lewis, who you have under contract for 3 more seasons after this year. It will be one of those 3 guys, probably be Christian Wood, but that dead money on the books is too big of a deterrent. So in my opinion, I don't think they go sign anybody, despite the fact that they clearly need another big.
Yeah, that's the problem, is unless you're saying Spencer Dinwiddie, see you later, and that's clearly not going to be a thing. I don't want to eat that money next year. Like, they're already going to be tight enough against everything as it is. By the time whatever happens with LeBron, whether he just opts in or they re-sign him to a new deal, whatever it is, you're going to be up around the second apron. That's just the reality of where the Lakers are sitting right now going into next offseason. So I think it's going to be a spot where you don't want to have dead money, because that just then becomes it just sits there. There's nothing you can do with it. You can't trade it. You can't do anything with it. I certainly wouldn't recommend stretching it, because we're in a spot where after next year, pending what happens with LeBron, we don't know what the Lakers cap sheet will look like. It's pretty clean. It's AD, Reeves, and not a lot else down the line. So you're in a spot where you just probably got to ride this out, and it kind of is what it is, and just make the best of it and play smaller. Maybe you just go to more Hachimura at the 5 if you have to. Like, if you don't want to play Jackson Hayes. I think in the regular season, fine, you play Jackson Hayes and live with those 10, 15 minutes a night. But I'm not, I don't know. This is a tough spot. I guess if you were like, we're not re-signing Max Christie anyway, and that seems like a short-sighted thing to me, maybe you waive him, but I certainly wouldn't do that. This is probably something that should have gotten addressed at the trade deadline. Honestly, if we were this worried about it, we should have got there. I think we knew enough by then that, all right, Christian Wood's pretty good, but we could use one more guy. But they also didn't know they wouldn't be without Vanderbilt and all the stuff that happened and all that. So you're just kind of stuck here. I am with you. I saw some pushback in the chat about the player options. I'm with you. I would not give out these player options. You don't need to do that, even without predicting the future. You just don't need to do that. That's not were these guys not going to sign with you if they didn't get the player option? Especially like Christian Wood, there weren't other options out there really at that point for him. So I don't know, that part gets lost on me a little bit.
If a player option is always a bad thing for a team, unless the player does something dumb that they shouldn't do, but otherwise a player option is always a negative for it from the team perspective. Unless it's like, hey, I'm not getting the guy to sign unless there's a player option. Even if it's a clear-cut superstar level player and you're going, hey, we're just giving you everything, the player option still sits as a negative at the end of that deal, because who knows what's going to happen. It's always possible that something happens there and the player winds up getting hurt or something like that. And then they pick up their player option, and that's money that you're still stuck with. So from the team perspective, a team option is always a good thing. A player option, always a bad thing. You want to at least have the opportunity to make that decision. When you put it in the hands of the player, that takes that decision away from you, and it makes it more difficult to move on from the player if you need to. And it comes down to, as you said, could you have gotten the deal done without it? Could you have done it? Were you just being nice and said, hey, we'll throw a player option onto this? Did you need to do that? Because right now, like, if you didn't have that, I'd be saying, well, yeah, just, you can cut Christian Wood and, he's going to rehab over the summer, and then maybe you touch base in July or something like that. And in the meantime, you go pick up whoever it is that you want to help man the middle, and there you go. But because of that player option, you can't do that.
Yep. I would also say this, and this is always the question I ask: who do you want? Because it's not like there's great players sitting home right now
No,
that are going to come in and step in and be a rotation five. There just aren't. There's like I was kind of while we were running through this, I'm kind of scanning through. All right, who's available out there? There isn't anybody that I'm jumping at. Oh, there's the guy. Go get this guy. Like I would maybe I'm missing names, and maybe there's somebody out there that people really are like kind of in love
it's
with. Of like
it's
this is
Dwight.
an option. But what's that?
It's Dwight. That's who people are talking, because everybody remembers Dwight from 2020. Like, people don't even remember Dwight from like 2022, but they're thinking about Dwight. And I don't know if you saw, he on Instagram, he basically posted a video that was like all of his best Lakers little highlights, like basically saying, "Come sign me," so people were a little ramped up on that.
Yeah. I okay. I mean, I don't know. I am not there. Like he hasn't played all year.
Right.
So like what yeah. Like I mean somebody said Metu is on a 10-day with Detroit. Okay, but he's not. Is he better than Jackson Hayes? Like I don't like he's on a 10-day contract for a reason. Like there's maybe you could have gotten Taj Gibson. Like at least that's somebody who
Sure.
could have come in and been physical for 8-10 minutes a game or something like that. Like I think that could have been something. But yeah, I don't know. There's just not a lot of guys. I mean, it's funny because I've seen a bunch of people like, yeah, Robin Lopez is still available, but Robin Lopez he looks pretty done. Like
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe Nerlens and like you're it's cool. Like, yeah, I mean, just keep throwing out names. Kareem got any games left in him? How's his hip? Like, right? Like, what are we doing? Like, these are just names. Like these guys haven't played all year. Like, and even like Lopez, like he played, but he wasn't very good when he did play. He was just kind of there. So yeah, I'm not sure. So yeah, what's Kevin Garnett up to? Daniel House, but that doesn't solve anything. The Lakers don't need another wing. Like that doesn't solve anything for them. So yeah, and
No.
then you got like I don't know. I've seen now people like, hey, DeMarcus Cousins is doing another stint, but it'll be over by the playoffs. Like, can we get could we get him? I've had like 7 people from all
Oh
different
yeah.
fans from all different teams asking. It's like what? Like why? Like it's sometimes you become
It's
more
the
name than game. And
Yeah,
it's
that's it
where we're at.
exactly. It's the big names from days gone by that
Yeah.
people, remember fondly and think, "Oh, he could still be something for
Yep.
us." And, that's
But
what it comes down to.
this is something they have to address in the offseason. You've got to find another big. Like you have to bring in somebody who can give you 20 minutes a game or something like that. Should have signed Gaffer. Gaffer wasn't a free agent.
No. Yeah.
Uh,
You would
like,
have had to trade for
you
him,
had to
and that would
trade
have
for him.
caused your first pick, and,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I
all
wouldn't.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Gafford was never available, like unless it was going to be via trade. And I don't know if the Lakers could have got there. I don't know that it would have given their first round pick, considering everything else they're out picks and everything. So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I have Vlade on speed dial. Okay,
Um,
sure,
this
why not?
question is the Draymond Green push a big deal or not? I'm assuming he's referring to what happened the other night with Taylor Jenkins getting knocked down in Memphis. I mean, Draymond was doing his normal Draymond stuff where he's kind of instigating and trying to get in the middle of anything and everything and being a pain. Um, but I like tempers flared up. Like, nobody was trying to push Taylor Jenkins. It just he kind of got like
Yeah,
domino
you just
effect, got ran
yeah,
into and got knocked down there. It was not Jeff Van Gundy hanging on to legs or anything like that.
right. Yeah, it's my thing with Draymond, and we said this at the time. Every game now from here on out in his career, guys are going to do what they can to try to get under his skin, try to bother him, and try to get him to react. And anybody who thought he was going to come back and never get another technical foul or never get it even thrown out of another game, that was just never going to happen. And quite honestly, I don't think the Warriors really want that, because a lot of what has made him a special player is his fire that he plays with. He has to play that
Sure.
way. Otherwise, he's not going to be an effective player. What they don't need is like choking guys out or, punching out teammates or like absolutely doing completely, just nonsensical stuff on the court that has nothing to do with it. But getting into people, like, fine, like that's part of it. Like it's gonna happen and continue to happen for as long as he plays. You just can't get anybody to go too crazy. Like
Yeah, exactly. There's a
yeah.
line that you can't cross, and Draymond likes
Yep.
to kind of be right at that line, and then every once in a while
Always.
he slips
Yep.
right over that line.
Yep.
Am I against bringing in Dwight Howard? If the Lakers had a wide open roster spot, didn't have to cut anybody to do it, you could have him come in and say, "Hey, if nothing else, hang out," right? Like, but that's just not the situation. So that's why I don't see it happening, and I don't think they should want that dead money on the books for next year because looking at the numbers, it's going to be so tight. Like having that 3 million of Christian Wood or whoever sitting dead money on the books could wind up being the difference between having a taxpayer MLE to use or not, or having, incurring the wrath of the second tier apron or not. Like, so that's a lot to risk just to go bring in, Dwight. And I like Dwight. He's, he was great for the Lakers 4 years ago, but I think it's a pretty big gamble to take to bring in somebody for a few weeks and you don't know what they're going to be able to do. All right.
I like this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Can Misic win Rookie of the Month for March? Sure. Yeah. Good. He might. He's played really well. Really well. It's funny. I want to say it was maybe Zach Lowe's podcast, Low Post. They were talking about all rookie teams. And he was talking about how it's just a lot of voters, they don't like to vote in the older rookies that have had like a whole career already in Europe into those spots. But he's like, once you get to that second team all rookie, sometimes you're like, all right, yeah, I can put him in there. So yeah, I mean, I think he is deserving. He's played really well. All of the guys the Hornets got at the trade deadline have actually given them solid, productive minutes. Trey Mann's been pretty good. Grant Williams has been pretty good. Even Davis Bertans has been fairly solid. It was a pretty low bar to clear. The Hornets were pretty awful before that. So it's not like we're going too great. And it's not like those guys were like here and then they went to here. They were like here and they went to like here. So, but that's good, right? I mean, that's better than what I think you expected out of some of those guys. And it's just fun to see Misic actually get the chance, right? Because he was one of those guys we waited for him to come over. Then he comes over and it's like, now he's on this loaded team, Thunder team with 100 guards and plays 10 minutes every other night. And it's like, all right, well, what are we doing with this? So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
All right, Keith, there was a question earlier that I wanted to get into and I can't find it in the chat now, but asking what our preferred first round matchups would be in each conference. And so let's take a look at that real quick here. Let's start up here with the East. Now, obviously, we're not going to say, Boston, Milwaukee in route because that's not going to happen. Sure. But what's your preferred matchups here? Looking at the play-in, and I think we look at it from the perspective of what would be the most fun to see in the first round in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, so this one's obviously there's going to be bias creeps in because I would like to see the Celtics get through the first round. So I really don't want any part of the Heat. There's just too much history there. That's too much. But for fun purposes, Celtics Heat or Celtics Sixers, like that'd be great. Like that's you would expect whenever a team's a 1 seed to kind of roll through the first round, and that's one where they'd get pushed and they'd get challenged. So I think that's that. Give me one of those for the first round, and then Milwaukee to get the other one probably. Like I don't know, maybe Cleveland, but yeah, give me Milwaukee with the other one because that's another challenge, right? And so you'd have 2 fun series with your top 2 seeds right off the bat, and sometimes those aren't really all that good.
The answer is definitely not Chicago or Atlanta. No. At this point, those are not. Now, if Trae Young was healthy,
I discounted them almost immediately.
Yeah, like they're just eliminated. If Trae Young was healthy, then maybe we could see something there. But I kind of like the Magic Knicks matchup that we be getting right now, and Cavs Pacers. I think both of those are
Sure.
pretty intriguing matchups. So I'm actually okay with the way it sits now. Obviously, my preference would be Miami Boston in round one, but I do looking at like what I'd be okay too with if it wound up if we somehow wound up Cavs Knicks or whatever. But I'm okay with the way this sits right now. I think all of those series would be pretty fun, and I'd be really interested to see what this young Orlando team can do against a Knicks team that really puts it on you physically, especially if they're healthy. They're a team that they hustle after every loose ball. They can really make you work. So I'd be curious to see how this young Orlando side would respond to that.
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge for the Magic, right? Is getting into the playoffs the first time for Gary Harris probably was in the playoffs. I'd have to go through the entire route. I mean, Joe Ingles has been there before.
Mhm.
Fultz has been there before. Isaac as well. But I think just as you kind of run through the players, this is their first time as this group, and we're going to find out a lot. And this is going to be good because we're going to get a real sense of, all right, what is it that they do need this summer to like really take the next step? We talk about it a lot here. Going from bad to good is one step. Going from good to great is an even harder step to make. And that's where the Magic want to go. And some of that will come just with growth. Paulo Banchero is only in year 2. Franz Wagner's only in year 3. Same with Suggs. So like those guys are going to grow naturally. But as that happens, some other guys are going to drop a little bit. Some other guys are just not going to be there. So you want to figure out what is it we really need with this. So yeah, I think it's going to be, a very telling playoffs for the Magic to get a real sense of, all right, what is it we have to go get if we want to take that next big step?
Yes. Yep. 100%. All right. Looking at the Western Conference, the matchups that we'd like to see. I mean, any of the 4 teams that are in the play-in right now could make a pretty interesting, compelling 1-2 matchup, whether it's the Thunder, the Nuggets. Do you think the Wolves, just given how many injuries they've been dealing with, given how many games are left, are they out for potentially the 1 seed here? They're a game and a half back.
Yeah, I know that's only a game and a half, but it just feels like it's more than that. They're just, I'll give them credit. They're hanging in there because it hasn't been just Towns. Gobert's been out too for like the last week. So, and then Naz Reid was out. They played, when they played Denver, they didn't have any of their top centers.
Which was amazing that they even held on against Denver. That was they had Jaden McDaniels defending Jokic for a while, and he did okay. But they were out their 3 top centers,
two-way guy, and we're like, hey, take your turns on the best player in the world. Good luck, kid. Figure it out. But yeah, I'm kind of taking them a little bit off the board for the 1 seed. Then you start to look at, they're going to be the team, whether they finish 1, 2, or 3. They're going to be the top. Everybody likes to pick a top seed to fall, and they're going to be the one everyone's going to pick. Maybe the Thunder, depending on who they draw. If the Thunders get the Lakers or the Warriors in the first round, I think you're going to see people talk themselves into, well, the veteran team's going to take out the young upstart team. But the Timberwolves, if they're 3 and they're getting Dallas or Phoenix or Sacramento, I think a lot of people are going to start talking themselves into, they're going to fall. They're going to get knocked out. So that's tough. This maybe is cheating a little, making it very easy. Yeah. I will say it is, I'll take any in the West. Really, any of these 10 teams playing any of the others. I just think they're all going to be really good, fun matchups.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy way to do it, because I think you're right. I mean, the more I think about Clippers Pelicans, the more excited I am about that matchup. I think that could be really good. But then I also look at it and I'm like, but hell, I mean, Clippers Mavs would be fun. I don't think that's going to happen, but still, any of these matchups could be absolutely great. Mavs Wolves is really interesting, especially because the Mavs, they've been trying to find that piece in the middle that they want to use. Daniel Gafford, hopefully, I believe he returned after suffering that injury the other night, so he should be good. But that would be a really fun matchup. All of these could be great, and that's just again, we look at the West and we remember that like Houston will be better next year, and Houston's won 7 in a row. They're starting to get themselves
9-1, 7 in a row.
They're getting back in the discussion here. And then Memphis was essentially erased this season. Add them next season, plus Wemby is another year older. Good Lord. I mean, the Western Conference is a buzzsaw.
We've talked about this, I know, on the show before, and like my like prevailing theory is with the West, what happens is when a team falls down in the West, like Memphis or Portland or
Sure.
San Antonio, right now, they fall way down. They end up having one of the worst records because the other teams are good. It pushes them way down. Then they move to the top of the lottery. They get a good player. And it's just, it keeps cycling. Where in the East, the teams never seem to fall all the way down for
Mm-hmm.
in a period where it's they get pushed so far down, even when it's like, because right, you just said it. Memphis is not a 23-47 team. We all know
No.
that. If they had all their guys, they're in that probably 5, 6, 7, 8 range in the
Mm-hmm.
conference. Like they're that good. So it's one of those things where we really look at it with them is, all right, we know they're probably going to be back. Now we also know we've done this long enough and watched forever. Somebody who's above them, it's all going to fall apart for them. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
down where they are. That's just how it works in the league. Teams that we think are going to be good, somebody always ends up being not very good. So, yeah, but that's part of why the West kind of it's this like perpetual sustaining thing where it's like they just keep feeding into all right. San Antonio fell, they got Wembanyama. Portland's going to fall, they're going to get somebody good. It just gets really, really tough.
Yeah. Yep. But the more we talk about this, the more excited I get for the playoffs and those
Yeah.
getting going. We've got so much good basketball on right now. Well, okay, not always good basketball.
Yeah.
If you've been watching the tournament, Keith, I have seen more blown lobs than I've ever seen in my life. The first day of the NCAA tournament, so
Yeah.
many times guys were going for it, and just the ball slipping through their hands, or the pass is 2 feet too high, or whatever. But it's exciting. It's fun basketball, and then we've got the NBA playoffs coming up. Man, if you love basketball, this is the time of year for you. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great to have it all day long, right? Like that's so much fun. And my whole thing too is I love college basketball for what it is, but self-admitted NBA snob. I can
Mhm.
only take so many. All right, we passed the ball around the perimeter for 30 seconds and we clanked a jump shot. Now we changed ends, and now their team did the exact same thing, and now we
Yep.
change ends again. And it's just like, like. There's just times when I'm like, I don't like. I just there's. It was about 10 o'clock last night where I'm like, all right, I think I've had enough college basketball for the day. Like I was just kind of out, and I ended up watching the end. I saw the end of the Kansas Sanford game, and all the shenanigans there, and Sanford might have gotten, not might have, they didn't, they got a pretty rough call. I'm not going to say they would have won, but yeah, it's but it can be a tough watch at times, especially if you're so ingrained into watching, the NBA for 5-6 hours every night like we do.
GM Mercado said, "Is it just me or is the NCAA ball so bright orange it's close to neon orange?" I wasn't sure because
Yeah.
we just had to get a new TV. We got back from our Disneyland trip during the All-Star break, and we came back to find out our TV was dead. And so I got a new TV to replace it, and I'm still trying to dial in the colors. I'm like, is it the TV where I don't quite have the colors all set
I'll
yet,
have to
or
look.
is the ball really that bright?
I'll have to look. I self-admittedly I watched the first set of the games from a bar and a restaurant, and we're hanging out, so it wasn't really all that focused on that. But I'll look now. It hasn't jumped out to me, but it could be. I know generally too they break out brand new basketballs for the tournament, so that's
Mhm.
probably part of it too. It's there, and a lot of players, that is part of the reason why you'll see. I mean, there was a game yesterday where it was like 8-6 at like the 14-minute mark, and people were like, yeah, this is awesome. Part of it is it's the ball. Like the ball is just
Mhm.
not great. And sometimes some of these schools, even the mid majors, they're coming from smaller gyms playing in the bigger arenas. And it just takes a while to adjust it to everything. There's just a
Yeah.
lot of space. They always talk about the Final Four where it's played in like a football stadium. It's all that empty space that you see.
Yeah.
Like it just
It's
completely
weird.
changes. The guys talk about it from the bubble at Disney in the bubble year. They're like between the no crowds and the fact that they were like, these were shooters' gyms because it was just the court and then right there, like they, created these, like fake walls almost like behind the bat because there were no fans. So it was like, these are perfect. Like this is, perfect place to shoot. Like anybody who shoots will tell you. So yeah, you have a lot of fun with that. So.
All right, last thing that we'll mention for today. Again, go check out the Basketball Bulletin. I'm linking again Keith's piece on all the NBA prospects to watch in the tournament today. Very, very useful guide right there.
I want to do one more question.
Sure.
If the Lakers 3 players are out for the season, but they don't have 3 players out for the season. So that's the problem. You have to get to 4 too. You have to get to 4 players out. Then you can petition for a hardship exception, but they don't. They're not even there because some of those guys have come back and then gone back out again. Now Hood Schifino's out, but as far as I know, he's the only one, right, who's done for the year. Like that we know of.
Yeah, JHS is the only one that we know for sure is done for the year. Everybody else is maybe we don't know yet.
Yeah. I mean, they're close to because Reddish came back for a couple games there, but they'll be very close because Vanderbilt's been out for a while. Vincent Wood, Hood Schifino. So I think Hood Schifino has to be out probably another game or 2 because there's a set amount of games as well. So when you get to that point, they could file for a hardship exception, which would give them an additional roster spot. Challenge, hardship exceptions not. Those players can't play in the postseason. So you'd only be getting the guy for the rest of the regular season. Right. So that's the other challenge with this. So
which is like 13 games.
Yeah, exactly. So it's if the Lakers are going to fill a spot, they're going to have to waive somebody to do it. Like that's the only way. So, and I saw somebody saying they should just waive Dinwiddie. That doesn't set a good tone of they went out, recruited this guy to come, and it's like, sorry, man, see you later.
Yeah.
Like, and then he's not playoff eligible either because it'd be.
And he's had his moments.
Yeah, he's been fine. I honestly think he plays a kind of a big role because you don't know if Vincent's going to be able to give you anything when he comes back. So,
right.
And that'd be the other thing. If Vincent returns, if Vanderbilt returns, any of those guys return, like you're going to end up in a spot where it is, you end up with now all of a sudden the hardship goes away because you've got guys healthy. So that's the problem. But yeah, if we get there, maybe at some point.
All right. Well, let's go watch some basketball.
Do it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Front Office Friday. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber yet, hit that button. Don't forget to turn on notifications as well. And go follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Obviously, we appreciate all of you being here, and we're ready for the NBA playoffs and more NCAA March Madness today. So thank you again, everybody. Till next time. See ya, and stay safe.